Okay, this is Suzanne Etkin again, and I have now a little quick ditty presentation about presentations. So some of you may decide that giving a presentation for your community, for your garden club, in any other sort of more formal setting might be a great way to get your message out. So in this next few minutes, I'm going to give you some tips for a good presentation. And in the next webinar, I will give you a sample presentation which you can use, and I would encourage you to plagiarize and steal any of those slides if you find them helpful for you, or to modify them to make them work for you. So the most important thing about presentations often happens before you even start your presentation. So you really want to know, who are you presenting to? What's the best format for this audience? So you don't always have to do a PowerPoint presentation. And then what's the one thing you want them to know after your presentation, and what's the one thing you want them to do? So focusing on those 4 questions is a really important way to frame your presentation. So there are lots of different types of presentations. You don't have to do a PowerPoint, but you do have to have a visual aid. You can't just get up and talk. You should have something for people's eyes to follow on, even if it's just the natural world around you. And then consider movement or kinetic presentations where you're actually doing something. And here's a little sneaky hint: you don't always have to be the presenter. So there's 4 easy steps that I'm going to go over for an effective presentation. First step is know your audience. So find out as much as you can about who's going to be at the meeting, how many people, what do they know, what do they care about. But then during your presentation, begin with introductions if you can, and hopes for the meeting. Ask people what they hope to learn, and then lay out an agenda and a goal for the presentation so people will know clearly what to expect. But here's the trick: if you ask for people what they hope to learn, and your agenda and goals are totally different, that's a little bit of a problem. So you have to be willing to really meet people where they are. So, and this is that feedback, and it really should happen throughout your presentation. You're going to be giving a message to people that are going to receive that message, and they're going to give feedback back. When I'm presenting, I always like to invite questions throughout the presentation, because the more one person talks, the easier it is for people to tune them out. You might be tuning me out right now, even, since I'm not getting any feedback from you who are listening. So I wish we were in person, but it's really important to get that feedback. Step 2 is what I like to call the Oreo cookie presentation. So it's starting with the whole, breaking down into its parts, and then returning to the whole. So my former boss and great mentor, Steve Barry, always used to encourage me to put the end first. So to really present the whole, or the context for learning. That's one of the reasons why we always begin the WSA certification course with a stormwater tour. So we take you and we show you all of those examples of the good, the bad, and the ugly before you even know necessarily what a step pool conveyance system is, or have an idea of the parts of a rain garden. So we didn't expect that you would know these things when we were out in the field, and the objective was not necessarily to teach you those things, but really to present a picture of the whole. You want to draw your audience in immediately and make it personal. So once you've presented the whole, you then want to break down the parts, demonstrate, illustrate, practice, explore, whatever it is, to sort of help them understand the parts of what you're trying to get across. And then lastly, return to the whole with an action they can take as part of the presentation. So step 3, get to the point and make it personal. So plan your presentation to take less time than you are given, and keep it short. So a good rule of thumb is to plan about 1 minute per slide. So if you have a 10-minute presentation, don't bring 20 slides. and in fact try to cover less material than you think you have time for. And you haven't mastered anything until you can say it simply. And then lastly, make it personal and meaningful to your audience. Step 4, ask for action and follow-up. So end with an action or an ask. Be sure to exchange digits. Get a list of the people that were there with their contact information. So you might want to have a sign-in sheet, and conversely, you might want to have a little card where they can have your contact information. In fact, you're going to be receiving business cards as part of this training so that you can do that. Or bring a small handout with a few key ideas, resources, your contact information, and a next step. No need to bombard them, but something very simple. And then you want to follow up with your audience to see if they took the action, need help, or want to know more. So, some period of time after your presentation, you want to send an email to everybody who came that said, hey, thanks for having me at your meeting. I hope that you learned some things. Let's be in touch. Do you need help? Or maybe inviting them to the next thing. So odds and ends, you want to really know what setting you're presenting in. I once went to a community building to present, and I did not realize that this building was not an actual enclosed building. It was really a pavilion that had a lot of natural light in it, and I had a PowerPoint presentation that was really, you couldn't even see it. And so if I had investigated the setting ahead of time, I would have brought a different kind of presentation. You want to make sure that your audio-visual equipment, that you have it and you know how to use it, and you have a plan for what happens if it doesn't work. So voice modulation and tone. So a lot of times when people talk, they use a louder voice or a higher voice, and people can really hear and pay attention to an even tone of voice much easier than they can a shriller or a higher pitch. So when you're creating your slides in PowerPoint, use very few words and large pictures. People aren't there to read your slides. They're there to hear what you have to say. So the large pictures will draw you in, and you'll say what you need to say. End early, that's a great thing to do. No one wants to be sitting in a presentation 10 minutes after they were scheduled to leave. Respect learning styles, so people might learn differently. People might need to process what you're saying. They might need to move around. They might be auditory learners, or they might be visual learners. So you might have some different learning styles. And then lastly, say what you're going to do what you said you were going to do, and then say what you did. That's that Oreo part. Okay, this ends the presentation. I hope it's been valuable for you. And in the next webinar, I will be presenting a sample presentation. Thanks.